In Umwezi, hair was not merely a physical attribute, it was the manifestation of the soul. It was the antenna through which the gods poured their blessings. To possess a thick, flowing mane in Umwezi was to be a living deity. Men with hair cascading down their backs ate for free in the marketplace. A receding hairline was viewed as a spiritual fracture. To be bald was to be a pariah, a visible sign that one had committed a sin so grievous that the ancestors had withdrawn their protection. At 35, Putu was a king among men. He was a master carver, his hands capable of coaxing spirits out of dead mahogany. He had wealth, he had respect, and most importantly, he had a dense, dark forest of hair that he oiled with shea butter until it gleamed like obsidian. He had the favor of the gods, and because of it, he had Adana, the village beauty, as his wife. Until the morning of the Hamatan winds. It began innocuously. Putu awoke to the rooster's crow, stretching his muscular frame. As he ran his hand through his magnificent hair, a morning ritual of pride, a sensation of unnatural smoothness grazed his fingertips. He froze. Looking down at his pillow, his heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. There, resting on the woven mat, was a clump of hair the size of a large nut. Panic, cold and sharp, seized him. He buried the hair in the backyard before Adana woke, his hands trembling. "It is just stress," he whispered, "just the dry wind." Over the next 2 months, the forest on Putu's head was raised by an invisible fire. First, the crown thinned, exposing the brown skin of his scalp like drought-stricken earth. Then, the hairline retreated in a panic. Putu tried every remedy known to man, crushed snails, aloe, goat-hide wraps, but the hair kept falling. The village noticed. In Mwezi, the clay walls have ears. The segregation began slowly. Women in the market covered their baskets as he approached, as if his misfortune were contagious. Men in the palm wine hut stopped passing the calabash to him. "The gods have turned their face," they whispered. "What did Putu do? Did he steal from a shrine?" The final blow came on a humid evening when the high priest summoned him. In the village square, the priest pointed a trembling finger at Putu's head, which he had vainly covered with a woolen cap. "Remove the cloth," the priest commanded. Putu hesitated, then slowly pulled off the cap. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The top of his head was smooth as a river stone, with only a horseshoe of hair remaining around the sides. "Abomination!" a woman shrieked. "The ancestors have stripped him naked." That night, Putu returned to his hut to find Adana packing her belongings. She did not look at him. She stared at the mud wall, her eyes red from weeping, not for him, but for her own shame. "Adana," he pleaded, falling to his knees, "I am still the man who carved your wedding stool. I am still the man who loves you." She turned, her face twisted in revulsion. "You are not him. Putu was favored. You are rejected. I cannot sleep in the bed of a man the gods refuse to touch." She left him. Within the week, news reached him that she had moved into the compound of Obina, a man known for his profound laziness, but whose hair was so thick he had to fold it to sleep. Putu became a ghost in his own life, barred from the council, charged double for food, and mocked by children. He contemplated walking into the evil forest to let the beasts take him. But a small burning ember of curiosity kept him alive. He had not stolen, he had not killed. Why had the hair left him? Seeking solitude, Putu wandered far beyond the farm limits, towards the rocky hills where the outcast herbalist Babadogo lived. Babadogo was feared. He dealt in roots that twisted like snakes. As Putu approached the herbalist's secluded hut, hidden behind hanging moss, he heard voices, familiar voices. He crouched behind a baobab tree, peering through the cracks in the mud wall. flickering lantern light revealed a scene that stopped his breath. Sitting on a stool was Mazio Keke, the sternest elder of the village council, the man who had condemned Putuputu days before. Standing over him was Baba Dogo. "It is loose again, Baba," Mazio Keke grumbled. "The gum from the gum tree is not holding in this heat." "Patience, elder," Baba Dogo rasped. "I have harvested fresh sap." Putuputu watched in disbelief as Babadogo reached out and lifted the hair off Maziokeke's head. It came off in one piece, a woven cap of mesh and human hair. Underneath, Maziokeke's head was as bald as a vulture's neck, smoother even than Putuputu's. Putuputu clamped his hand over his mouth. "Fix it well," Maziokeke said, rubbing his shiny scalp. "The festival of Strands is in 2 days. I must look favored." "You will look like the son of the thunder god himself," Babadogo chuckled, applying a sticky white paste to the elder's head before slapping the hairpiece back on. Putuputu sat in the dirt, the world spinning. As he waited in the shadows, he saw 3 other men come and go, pillars of the community. They entered with hair, removed it to scratch their itching scalps, paid Babadogo with heavy bags of cowries, and left with their divine favor glued back in place. Wigs, a secret imported from distant lands. For the first time in months, Putuputu smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. The Festival of Strands was the height of the social calendar. Drums thundered like a heartbeat, and villagers danced, whipping their hair in a display of spiritual potency. Putuputu arrived late. He wore no cap. His bald head reflected the afternoon sun like a mirror. The music faltered. The crowd parted, creating a wide circle of isolation around him. Obina, his wife's new husband, stood forward. Obina's hair was magnificent, piled high in intricate loops. Adana stood behind him, looking at Putuputu with pity. "You dare defile this holy ground?" Obina sneered, flipping his locks. "A man rejected by the gods has no place here. Leave before we beat the bad luck out of you." "The gods favor the hairy. Is that not so, Obina?" Putuputu asked, his voice calm. "It is the law. Look at me. Look at you. The difference is clear." "Indeed," Putuputu said, taking a deliberate step closer. "But tell me, Obina, does the gods favor itch? Does it smell of gum tree sap?" Obina frowned, confusion clouding his arrogance. "What madness are you speaking?" Putuputu turned to the elders, locking eyes with Maziokeke, who suddenly looked very pale. "I have realized," Putuputu announced to the crowd, "that perhaps the gods are not in the hair, perhaps the gods are in the truth, and there is much lying in Mwezi." "Seize him!" Maziokeke shouted, his voice cracking. "He is possessed!" Guards rushed forward, but Putuputu was faster. He lunged at Obina. The crowd screamed. Putuputu grabbed the magnificent mound of hair on Obina's head and pulled with all his might. There was a wet, tearing sound. Obina shrieked. With a final jerk, the hair came free in Putuputu's hands. The silence that descended was heavier than a mountain. Putuputu stood, holding the mass of hair like a dead animal. Obina stood frozen, hands flying to his head, which was completely, utterly bald, save for patches of sticky glue. Adana screamed, a sound of pure horror. Her divine husband was a fraud. "A miracle!" Putuputu shouted, tossing the wig into the dust. "Obina has shared his blessing." He spun around and pointed a finger at Maziokeke. "And you, elder, will you show them or shall I?" Maziokeke looked at the furious crowd, then at the bald Obina. The game was up. With a sigh of infinite defeat, he reached up and peeled off his own hair. Then the blacksmith did the same, then the treasurer. One by one, the gods' favorites were revealed as bare as eggs. Nearly half the powerful men in the village had been visiting Babadogo for years. The women stared. They looked at the wigs lying in the dust and the men they revered. Then they looked at Putuputu, who stood with his natural boldness, honest and undisguised. Adana looked at Obina, hiding his sticky head, and then looked at Putuputu, standing tall. The high priest, who was genuinely blessed with natural though thinning hair, walked to the center. He poked a wig with his staff. He looked at the bald men. He looked at the sky. The rain still falls, the priest mused. The yams still grow. We have had bald men leading us for 20 years, and the gods did not burn the village down. He turned to Putuputu. It seems we have mistaken the roof for the house. The change in Umuezi was undeniable as the sunrise. The stigma broke because the hypocrisy was too great to sustain. If the wealthy were bold, then boldness could not be a sin. Putuputu did not take Adana back, though she came knocking with fresh stew. He found a new wife, a woman from a neighboring valley who told him she liked the way the sun warmed his head and that a man with nothing to hide was the most attractive man of all. In time, the men of Umuezi stopped hiding. They walked with their heads shaved clean, glistening with oil, proud of the skin they were in. And whenever a young man began to panic at the sight of hair on his pillow, the elders would laugh and say, "Fear not, my son, the forest may fall, but the mountain remains."